because everyone else were launching straight up to all sorts of
So we're all ready here, or how's it there? Many check on the screen, see if it's, are the things going out? Okay. Paul Nanabojo, Ninsa Ojik, Mampim Chiging Don Jaba, Chinendam Dashagibija Ek Kene Enchiek, Nongo Nakshik, Gadabaj Makundak, G-doodeminaanig, Mampi Nidominis Singh. I'm going to talk about these clans here that are in and around Manitoulin. And when there's a lot to talk about, so if you want to leave, then you can leave after an hour and a half or whatever. But I got 51 slides. I just thought I'm going to go ahead and give you the whole blast here. It could be a short thing, but the other part, there's a lot to this. So what I recommend each and every one of you to do as well is if you ever get a chance to listen to Gord Wendebents do the teachings and the workshop on this, then you should take him up on that and listen to him, and then also participate in it and be a part of it, because he does a really good teaching on it. But I'm not here to give you a teaching on it per se. I'm here to give you the documentary evidence, the archival information that goes with this. So this painting here was done by James Mishmaninjama Simon in Wiki, and he gave it to me. I spoke in Wiki, must be about 6 years ago now, and he called it Wind. But what I like about the painting is that it has the 7 clans according to how he heard it, but you see how that light shines down through, and it's coming through a hole, and it's like they're in a cave. But that's how Anishinaabe look at this world, that it came from another realm, that we're actually part of another world coming into this world. But usually it's from below. So they'll say that one bear came up to one level, then come up to another level from the depths of the earth. Then other times they actually talk about them coming down from above one layer down to another layer. So what the Anishinaabe believe is that we actually have 4 layers above the earth and 4 layers below the earth. So you hear people talk that they have a Anishinaabe name, and Doken Ma Bejik Anishinaabe, Neogijik Jinkaza. His name is Neogijik, 4th layer of the sky. So, and there is also a really nice, I think it's a really nice name that was here in Chiging, and then they moved to Wiki and then Manitoulin as well. And their name was Nawakamikagabo. And then Nawakamik means in the center of the earth, and then you add Gabo to it, Nawakamikagabo, standing at the center of the earth. And now those people are called Cooper. And of course that means somebody who makes a barrel. Not quite as nice a name as a Nawakamikagabo. So that's what this one's about. I used to live in Toronto, and when I was in Toronto, they had Jim Dumont come to the Native Canadian Centre. And when he came to the Canadian Centre, he did a workshop on these clans. And this is another guy I recommend that if you ever hear of him doing a workshop, then you go and listen to him, because he's got a lot that he offers on this as well. So you see that 7-pointed star and those rings, those circles, 7 circles around there. I don't know who made the diagram, I just took it off the internet. But he has this kind of diagram, because what he actually does with his ceremonial drum, he ties that what they call a boy drum. And when they tie that, they dress that boy drum, that water drum, you lift that up in the bottom, and then it makes that that 7-pointed star at the bottom of that. And then that's what he uses as a mnemonic device to talk about the teaching of the clan system. So when Gord Wendebents does this teaching as well, you see that at the bottom of the screen there's a crane, a jijok, we call them, and mong, that's the loon. And also Jim Dumont talks about this, that the jijok is the crane for the external chieftainship, and then the mong is the internal chieftainship, so the chief of your community. And then when these two have a dispute, it goes, you see those two lines, they make an arrow to that fish clan. And then the way Jim Dumont talked about it is that a fish, when he's in the water, he's the one who can see right straight to the sky. With his eyes, he can see all around the water, but he can also see straight up. And he has all this ability to look at the stars for direction. And then he's the one who is the philosopher or the thinker. And then that's the one, he says, who, if there's a dispute between that mong and that jijok, they send it to the philosopher, who then talks about how to settle this dispute. And then all these different issues are tied to different clan animals. But you see there that one wabajesh, that's a marten that we call in English. He's a hunter. And then also that bear, he's the one they call with the justice program and the medicine. And then the bird, they say Beneshi in this diagram. And that Beneshi is the one who is the spiritual people or the teachers. And then the same with the Hoof clan, they're the artsy people. And then the Gigo, the chief of the Gigo clan is the fish, the turtle, the Shikan. So this whole represents a decision-making framework of how people would talk about these things and pass issues along. And this seven-pointed star is how an issue would get debated and passed back and forth. And then you also look, if you ever get a chance, and if you are part of what they call Medewin, then this also represents a seating pattern that you would take place in that lodge. So if you want to learn more about that, then that's when you would go talk to somebody like Jim Dumont, or also when you talk about, if you ever get a chance, again, I just want to plug this again, because I heard Gord Wendebents do this at our powwow grounds here when he did the sunrise ceremony. And when he did the sunrise ceremony at the powwow grounds at our powwow, he has all these colors that go with this, and all the different teachings that go with it. And of course, he talks about it all in Ojibwe as well. So if you ever get a chance, like if there's a sunrise ceremony at the Shag powwow, and you know that Gord Wendebents is going to do the sunrise, then maybe he'll do it. But sometimes he doesn't. But I was lucky enough to hear him do that at our powwow grounds. And then I also saw him do it at Anishinaabemowin Tech. And then also at Nipissing, he did it for the youth council there. At Nipissing, there was a youth gathering. So you get to hear him talk about the roles and responsibilities of the clans, the colors of the clans, and the different teachings and attributes that each of these clans have. Myself, I don't really talk about that too much, although that will add too much more onto this. So what they end up saying with this clan is that they say there's a dispute. There's 7 original clans. Then if you read Basil Johnson's book, he says there's 5 original clans. And then if you read William Warren's book, you'll hear there's 5 original clans. And then Gord says there's 7 original clans. The old man I used to go and listen to said there was 10. But that's just the nature of the oral tradition. So sometimes people come up to me and they say, well, is it 5, is it 7, or is it 10? And they want an absolute answer. The reason we have that way of thinking is because when they made the Bible, they said, this is the word. And then you ended up wanting it one absolute way. But the Bible actually is a big compilation of all the stories that they took. And then the editors decided which one's going to be included in the book. With an oral tradition where we are now, we haven't really made the book that we're going to say, this is the story. And I don't think we should do that myself. As myself, I think the oral tradition one is who you're going to follow and how they give those teachings down, how it's been handed to them, and then how they pass it on to others as well. So that's what the thing with the Bible. You read stories of Samson and Delilah, and those are old stories. Even the flood. The flood is an old story that goes all around the world. And we had our version. There's a version in India, but somebody just wrote it down and said it was Noah. And then now we say that's the one that influenced everybody, but it's no. It was actually there beforehand. So 5, 7, or 10. And anywhere you go around the world, these are significant numbers because we all have 5 fingers, and we have in one hand 5 fingers, I should say. And then we have 10. So that's why you have these 5 and 10. But I've never really been able to figure out 7. 7 ends up being a significant number all over the world. And you don't have 7 body parts that you don't have 5 senses, and this kind of thing. But 7 all over the world is a significant number. Of course, there are 7 stars in the Big Dipper. You have other things that have the number 7 in them, 7 colors in the rainbow. So 7 clans. So 7 makes sense as well. But it depends on who you go to. And the thing I want to stress as well is if you go and listen to these guys, then you don't go there and say, no, it's 10, if they're saying 7. And then I don't want you to go there and say, no, it's 5. I read in a book it's 5. You just go and listen to how they tell it, how they've learned it, and then you take your understanding from that rather than trying to impose what you think is the correct or the right way. So then the next part is that they say that there were 7 clans that came after these clans. Each of these, so according to Gord, the way I heard Gord Wendebens talk about it is that there are a total of 49 clans all over Anishinaabe King. 49 clans, 7 times 7. That old man I used to go and listen to, he said there's 44. And then the 44, when he made that lodge, there was 44 poles, and he had all these different things that went with that as well. So that makes sense as well. You have just 2 different traditions that were according to how it was passed down to them. So here with this, it's 7 times 7. So you have this idea then that there's chiefs of these clans or leaders of these clans or the original clan. So some, again, get hung up on this, and then they start saying, well, this is a hierarchy that was imposed after the Jaganash came. That's what some say. That before the white man came here, there was no such thing as that. But this is how it is for us now. This is all I want to share with you, is that after that turtle clan, there's supposedly 7 others that come after him. After that deer, there's supposed to be 7 after this one. After that marten, there's 7 that come after that. After that crane, another 7. Mong, another 7. And that beneshi, another 7. Kwa, another 7. And what ends up happening is I tried to find all 49, or all 44. And then I tried to categorize them. Just the way I am. And that what ended up happening, I made a list here. And I put all these different names down. So this first row, on the left, you see a Mick, Piju, Gok, Nagik, Maingan, Makwa. So in that case, you'd look, it seems pretty evident that the Kwa would be the chief of that clan. But then when you look at Nagik, then I would think, okay, is Nagik under Kwa, or is he under Wabjesh, the marten? So I don't really know that. And then Wagush, to me, would be with Kwa as well. And Wabus, rabbit, possibly under Wabjesh. And then Wabjesh, Zhangwesh is a mink. So Wabus, Wagush, Wagush is a fox, Wabus is a rabbit, Wabjesh is a marten, Zhangwesh is a mink. So these are all 4-leggeds. Then the next row, this is my clan here, Bene, the rough grouse. And of course, you don't hear too many people say that they're Bene clan. They all say they're eagle clan or crane clan or bear clan or wolf clan. And then Gagage, that's a raven. You don't hear too many say that either. And then Gishkamansi. These clans, the other thing that you see is they're actually spatially separated. That Gishkaman, he's actually out west. If you go to northwestern Ontario, you'll see a lot of that Gishkaman, and that's the kingfisher, that bird. And he used to be on the back of the $5 bill. He wears a headdress, this guy. And they say he's got a white belt, a white necklace of wampum. And he's all sky blue, because at one point in his time, he ended up eluding Nanabush. Nanabush was gonna grab him, and he was all brown. As they say in the story, he was moichi brown. And then when he told Nanabush that he was gonna help him, then he ducked away from Nanabush, because Nanabush was mad at him. Nanabush wanted to grab him and strangle him. So he reached for him and grabbed him, but that bird, he can fly backwards, and he flew back. And then when he flew back, his hair's tufted up, his feathers tufted up, and they stood up like that. So that bird, he can hover like a hummingbird. He can fly back, sideways, up and down, all around. So he's just flying around Nanabush, telling him all this other stuff, but he's not telling Nanabush what he wants to know. Then finally Nanabush says, "I'll make you beautiful if you tell me what I need to know." And he says, "I'll make you sky blue, and I'll give you a white necklace of wampum." So he says, "Okay, I'll tell you what you need to know." And sure enough, he told him that, and he made him nice and blue. And he told him everything he needed to know, and then that's a whole different story. But that's how, when you end up hearing of that story, then when you hear that bird, Gishkaman, what the people say, if the Anishinaabe are on the lake, and this bird goes by, and that name Gishkaman, we say kingfisher, but Gishk means it's cutting, a cutting sound. Gishkama, he makes a cutting sound with his voice. And you go by the graveyard, that creek, and you'll see those birds flying around. You hear them. So that's what their name means, Gishkaman. But on Kadok Gishkamantego, because he's always on a tree, the branch, and he's looking over the water, and he looks in the water because he fishes and he stabs them. But if the Anishinaabe are paddling on the lake, and then that bird goes in front of them, and he goes, and he's giving him a warning. He's giving that Anishinaabe a warning. He says, "There's somebody under you. There's something under you." The one that we don't really say his name in Ojibwe in the summertime. We don't tell him his name because we're calling him in. He's a big cat. So that's part of if this is your clan, then that's what the story you got to know. All these different stories of how that Anishinaabe talked about these animals, then that's how you're going to know about them. So, Gokoko, of course we know as an owl. Chijok is a sandhill crane. Jichishkwen, that's a killdeer, but some say a plover. Mong, that's the loon. Megaze, that's the white-headed bald eagle. Mizise, that's a turkey. Nekka, that's the Canada goose. Wewe, that's another goose. Incidentally, that's Wawa. The English, the Methodists, they would use the letter A for the A sound. So if they wrote Anishinaabe, at the end of Anishinaabe, the Methodists would put an A, Anishinaabe. And then that's why you see Ojibwe written as Ojib, and then some say now Ojibwa, because the A is at the end. But what those guys were doing, they were trying to go for an A sound. So instead of Wawa, what we now know it as, because we know the letter A sounds like Ah, but the Methodists were trying to use it as Eh. So it's supposed to be Wewe. So anyway, that's just a Cliff Clavin moment. Shage. Shage is a heron, great blue heron. There's another story about that one. A dick is a caribou. Bejike. Before the white man came here, Bejike was a buffalo, not a cow. But then we just changed that name to become the cow. And of course, moose is a moose. Mshoe, anin kadok, mashkos. That's the elk. And then Metigamish, this is the one that sounds weird to people. Metigamish, that's an oak tree. Wigwas, that's a birch bark tree. And then the Swakwat, the crotch of a tree. When a tree grows out like this, that's a clan too. A Wasi, that's a brown bullhead, a small catfish. Ginoje, that's a pike. Monameg, that's a channel catfish, the big catfish. Mazandamo, that's a black water snake. Mashike, that's a snapping turtle. Nemebene, that's a sucker. Of course, now nobody comes around saying they're sucker clan. But that was a big clan. Neme, that's a sturgeon. Jishigwe, that was an older word for rattlesnake. And then Wawiyese, you see this word Wawiyese, but that's a tornado. And it was a bird. It actually, instead of being the tornado, this is how our language works and our way of looking at the world, is that the whirlwind and the tornado is synonymous with the thunderbird that makes it. So as that bird goes around, his name is Wawiyese, and then the after effect of him going makes it that name as well. And then Mishibiji is a lion, and in this case, it does mean the African lion, and I'll explain this later. Nimki, of course, you know, as thunderbird. Nabanabek, some say Anishinaabe, Nabanabek. These are the mermaids, mermen, and Anin Kadok Manabe. So I didn't fully make 44, nor did I make fully 49. And I still haven't sorted out who goes in which camp. But when you go listen to Gord, you'll understand where he'll place you. He'll be able to categorize you under those original 7. So this one is just that the story that I heard, but I can't record it. This one. This is this was on a birch bark scroll, and we have a representation of this in the Ojibwe Culture Foundation Museum here. And it's in 1902 and 1905, a fellow by the name of William Jones went around Lake Superior area, and he also came to Manitoulin actually, and Sault Ste. Marie, and he compiled 2 thick volumes of Ojibwe stories. One were all about Nanabush, and he wrote them down all in Ojibwe. And then the others were just what he called miscellaneous tales. And they were all written in Ojibwe and translated into English. Then he had this diagram in there as well. So for lack of a better word, I call this the conceptual universe of the Anishinaabe. So you see on my left, that's the east of the circle. And then on my right, that's the west. And you see that straight line going across, that's the path of life. And that's how we talk about this in Anishinaabe. When you go to different ceremonies, they talk about following the sun. That when the sun rises, then that's when the life begins, and it goes right across the sky, and they call that Bemasage, the path across the sun's path across the sky. And then when it lands in the west, then that's where we say we begin life in the east, and when we end life, we go out. You always hear people talk about going out the western door. So in the middle of that is a midday lodge. And in there are 3 cooking fires. But you see there's a man standing in the east and a man standing in the west. Guardians, Wabanize, meanwhile Ningal Bianize. And then all around are different animals. And when you see somebody, an elder, turning their pipe, you see them always turning around. They're just not showing off. They turn it around and they're asking all those different spirits to come in for a smoke. And then sometimes you see them turn around again. They're asking everyone outside that lodge to come in for a smoke. And then sometimes you see them pointed in specific directions. Of course, the most basic is just 4 directions. And then the earth and then the sky. But others you see point south, southeast, or south, southwest, or north. And then you see here that one in the northwest, that's a caribou. And then you also see a rabbit there and Piju, as well as the Wabjesh. And then on the other side, the northeast side, you see that moose, and then also that Nagik. And then right on top, we call him Gababunket, the winter maker. And then all below that, in the southern part, are different fish and all kinds of birds. The owl and the eagle. Right on the south, there's that eagle, Megazeh, one they call Megazeh. And then, of course, they have a goose there and different ducks as well. So this one, these basically say the laws. When you hear people talk about Anishinaabe law, and then I hear people talk about natural law, I don't really fully understand when they're talking about that, what they mean by that. But I know what this clan law, what the one law is that you follow your father's clan. Now I see people changing it because they see, on the one hand, they see what Mohawks, Nottowek, the Haudenosaunee do. Haudenosaunee are matriarch people, and they follow their mother's clan. But us Anishinaabe people, we followed our father's clan. All the way back to the beginning of time, we say, right back to creation. We follow that back, all the way back to creation. So they say, when your life is done, you go through the western door, you're going to meet your clan. And when you meet your clan, then he's going to take you to all your relations and introduce you to all of them, all the way back to creation, to the one that first clan that stood up there and said, I'll marry that Anishinaabe, or I'll marry that Anishinaabe. These people, these animals, these birds, these fish, they all changed themselves into Anishinaabe to help us out at the time of creation. So that's the one law, that you follow your father's clan. Then the next law is that you don't marry within your clan. That's the second law, Anishinaabe law. So we have these Anishinaabe laws that we follow, and those are the two main ones that I know of that concern this clan system. This is a pictograph at Odaawaa Canyon by Sault Ste. Marie, and they call it Mine Gun's panel. And Mine Gun was an Ojibwe chief, war chief, who ended up fighting the Nottowek, who we call Nottowek, the Haudenosaunee. But you see there's 4 canoes, and they actually show the war chief of each of those canoes. And the war chief of the Crane clan up top, war chief of the Thunderbird clan, and then that bottom one, some say it, according to the Pine family in the Garden River, that was an Esga, they call it in Anishinaabe, Esga, a tick. And that tick, he could change himself into a tick so that he would go undetected. He would go and be able to do his reconnaissance missions. But here, what I think that is, it's faded. And so but that Mine Gun was of the Beaver clan. So that's what I think that is, that last one. Mine Gun, Beaver clan. So the other thing I want to disabuse you of, in certain senses, is that you'll hear people say, my name is a Mick, therefore my clan is Beaver. My name is fresh water at dawn, sparkling all the beat hell. Therefore I'm some kind of fish clan. But your name has nothing to do with your clan. And I'll show you these different clans, and I'll show you the animal and the clan that they are part of, that they have no relation. So you can't say, I'm a Thunderbird, my name is Niganweodung, that means sounding out in the front. Therefore, I'm Thunderbird clan. No, that doesn't work that way. If your name's Niganweodung, you could be the Sucker clan and have that name. Or you could be the Ginoje, or you could be a Dick, you could be Mashika, you could be any clan to carry that name. It doesn't mean that your name is determined by your clan. So that's another Haudenosaunee thing that comes with that. The Haudenosaunee, each of their clans have a certain number of names that go with it. So what I think is happening with us here in Anishinaabe now, since we didn't really know all of this, then we go and listen to these Nottowek, the Haudenosaunee, and they really kept their traditions quite strong with their wampum and their condolence ceremony and their great law and their clans and their names. So then we ended up starting to say, well, that's how it is with the Haudenosaunee, they're matriarch. So we should be a matriarch too, because the women are the boss. And then the other thing they say is, their clans, if you sit in their longhouse, you sit by their clans. You sit on a certain side of the wall. And then if you know your name, then they'll say, okay, your name means this, so it's kind of close to this, so you're going to sit with these people in that clan because that name belongs to this clan. But Anishinaabe people, we don't have that. And so this chief, his name was Maingun, and his clan was a Mick. So there's no real relation. There could be a possible relation if you want to say that they're four-legged. So here, maybe you can't see this too well, but this is a war club. We call it Waganakabijagun, when it's what they call in English a gun stock war club. But the one with the ball, they call Bugamagan. But they would carve them up, and you see here, they would decorate them. You see that one, he's a Thunderbird clan. And if you can see it, he's holding in his feathers are up, and he's kind of doing his Charles Atlas pose. And he's got in one hand a war club, and in the other he's holding a turtle. And then you see in his other talon, he's holding a snake. And that's who he's showing that he's of the Thunderbird clan, and he defeated enemies of the turtle clan and a snake clan. Likewise, his brother there is defeating somebody of a different type of fish clan. So that's how the Anishinaabe would represent themselves as their clan first, rather than as an individual. So the clan took precedence over that individual identity. Tied right in with this, the hard part, and this is the part we're losing as Anishinaabe. As Anishinaabe people, the speakers as well. I asked certain people that speak Ojibwe that Ojibwe is their first language. I'll say, how do you say auntie? And when you actually hear them, listen to them talk about their aunts, they'll say, or they'll talk about his aunt, they'll say the auntie man. They'll make it into an English Ojibwe word. Because there's actually two words for auntie and two words for uncle. And it depends on whether that is your clan uncle, if they have the same clan, or if it's what they call cross uncle. So Njishen is if that's your uncle, if that's your mother's brother. Njishen, your mother's brother who is your uncle. But like here, my uncle back here, sitting back there, George, we would call him Mishome, and that literally means my little grandfather, because my dad and him are brothers, but then my grandfather, Paul, we would call him Mishome. And then he has the same clan as my dad, and I have the same clan as them. So the same thing, my sisters have the same clan, but my mom didn't have the same clan as my dad. So when then I'd call my cousins all the same name as I would my own brothers and sisters. And here's where it gets real complicated, but this is, you see this chart? If our language were really full and complete, and then also our way of life and our whole traditions, then we would know this inside out as well. And then we would know who our clan members are and how we would call them our brother or our sister, dependent on this. But we also kept track. So our cousins from our father's brothers, we would look at them as being immediate family members. The same thing though with my mother's sister's kids. I'd have the same set of terminology for them as cousins, but they would be referred to as the strongest terms of relation, being that they are actually like my brother and sister. So they kept track of the bloodline through your mother, and they kept track of the clan line through your father. And it was those kinship terms bear out in that sense. Anyway, that's a whole nother lecture too. But the main point, and this is unwavering in the Anishinaabe king, in the historic record, you followed your father's clan. That you didn't take two. Now that's what seems to be happening. We're taking two. I guess that's all right. Double the power or whatever. But you keep track. You're supposed to be able to keep track of your mother's people as well, and then you keep track of your clan. And then the other thing that people said, even the people up in Sandy Lake, Northern Ontario, They said, it doesn't matter how far away these people are. And this guy actually was Sucker Clan. And he says, if I went down to the big city and I met an Anishinaabe and they had my totem, I would expect them to open the door for me and let me in their house and treat me with all the hospitality that they would their own brother, that they would feed me and that I would be able to sleep there, and they'd have to eventually kick me out, getting tired of me. But they said they're supposed to take care of each other. That was part of this clan system. If you think of our old times, where they talk about that there's a village here and a village there, and people had to get married to each other, but they also had to take care of each other. And I read people leaving Cross Village in, let's say, Saginaw Bay in Michigan, and then they're all the way out in Winnipeg. And they find relations out there, and then that's where they're able to stay with those people. So that's another part of this clan system. So here, this is a note. Again, like I said, we didn't write down individuals, and it's what's happening, I think, with us again now is our clans are being subsumed by individuals. So here you see, this is a note up top, and this was a very specific location because it was where the river forks, and then the second fork of that river is where we are staying, our camp is, and there's 2 wigwams there, they said, as well as 3. He says, but it's above the other break in the river that goes to the lake with the round lake adjoining it. So it was a very specific location, and this was drawn on a piece of birch bark. So it was a young lady who drew this to her suitor, and she said, come and meet me, I'll be waiting in the second teepee. So, and you see her sitting in there, waiting. So the one on below, the note that's left there, this is years later, the man was always at the front of the canoe. And you see that bear clan? Now you see those little bears? Those are the children. And then you see at the back that catfish? That's the lady that wrote that note. She got pregnant. This is 3 kids later, and they're writing a note saying, we have left and we went in this direction, and we were joined by this family who are Thunderbird clan. The male is Thunderbird and the woman is Bear clan. So when they left these notes for each other on the shore or at different places, they would know who was who, because they would know, okay, I know who was married to Bear clan, married to Manameg, or Nimki married to Mkwa, and that they have this many children. So you see the old practice as well on the grave markers. You see that one where that I can't get rid of that symbol on there for whatever reason. But that's a big fish, and they're going down into the earth. And then also below that one, it looks like Wabjesh, big tail, big bushy tail, going down into the earth. And the same thing, that bear on the other side, bear going down, and then there's a bird flying right down into the earth. So that's what they would do, make their grave markers. They would put down that clan on that grave marker, and that's going down into the earth. So what one of the priests wrote here in the wiki in the 1850s, he said what the people believe is that why they put that totem on there, he said you're going to be met. And they say there's a river that when your spirit goes along and you start going west to, they say, Jibai King, you'll meet a river. And there's a river there and then a bridge. And they say, depending on how bad you were, how mean you were to dogs, if you kicked them every time you had a chance, or if you killed any dogs, then those dogs, there's 2 dogs on either side, they're going to bark. And they're going to try and wake up that log. But what you don't know is that log is actually that big snake. And if he starts going like this, he's trying to knock you into that river. But if he's nice and quiet, lets you go right across. But it's your totem that meets you, this priest had written. He said it's your totem that meets you, and that's why that totem is going into the ground. And then that totem helps you cross that shaking bridge. I forget how to say that word in Ojibwe that they had. They have a name for that, and it's called a bridge that quakes. You go across that, and then once you're across, and that's when you meet all your relations that are your clan members as well. So that was the practice. You would bury your dead, and you put that clan is going to lead you there. So on Anishinaabe, Gyabe on Anishinaabe, Kade Ke Wak. Some of the Anishinaabe, they still fast. And when you're fasting, you have somebody watching over you. And you usually fast for 4 days, but back in the old days, you used to fast for 10 days. And when you would fast, they would say you're fasting so that you deprive your body of physical nourishment, water and food, so that your spirit comes to the fore. That's why they would say you're fast. And then when you fast and your spirit comes to the fore, you're more receptive to a message. And you're going to meet your dodem. Some people call them your dodem. Some call them boajagan, your dream visitor. And then others call them your nido. You're going to meet your guardian or whoever else you're going to get a message from. So that's what happens when you fast, but an elder is watching over you and protecting you. And then some would say, this was the late William Trudeau, I heard talk about this, that if a fast went bad and the dream wasn't good, there's a number of different reasons why a dream wouldn't be good. Then they would make a knife, Gijit ton mukman, gina kazan, gish kes, gijik. He would use a cedar. This elder would then make a cedar knife, and then he'd take your tongue, and he'd scrape that tongue, all that white stuff off your tongue. And then, of course, you have that fire there, and then that's when he burns that cedar knife, and whatever was on there from your tongue, burns it, and then he gets rid of that bad dream. So this is a painting by Norval Morrisseau, the late Norval Morrisseau, and you see all those teepees on the bottom, and he's just wreaking havoc. This is a painting called a Wendigo, and a Wendigo was an ice monster or a cannibal. So in the winter time, when people starved, they said a Wendigo spirit would take over them. And this, I used to think that just was out west in Western Ontario, but there's actually, in 1839, they had to get rid of one on the French River, right by the trading post there, the Hungry Bear. That's why they call it Hungry Bear. True story. But this is taken from a story by Maud Keig, who's from Mill Lac, and the book was written, transcribed, and published by the Minnesota Historical Society. And she says, "Oh, Guillen, Wendigo wit, that one who turns into a Wendigo, mi go Guillen ejinoat in Anishinaabemowin." He perceives, this word ejinoat is how they say perceive or recognize. He recognizes the Indian as G-doodeminaanig. He recognizes or perceives the Anishinaabe as his dodem. So when this fella is starving and he's in the winter time and a Wendigo spirit is taking over him, what he sees, he doesn't see all of you people. He actually sees a beaver, a bear, a thunderbird, a snake, and then that's what he thinks he's eating. So that's why here you see this Wendigo, they say he turns into a giant, he gets superhuman strength, and he's just throwing them like popcorn chicken, popcorn beaver. He's throwing it in his mouth, and you see all those beaver in his stomach, how many he's eaten. And the more the more humans he eats, the stronger he gets. So that's why they have to try and kill him. Other ways they try and feed him with hot soup and stuff. But so that's again the opposite of what we're trying to do when we fast. We're trying to get to recognize things in a spiritual manner. But if you're in a dire situation and you're starved, then this is the case that happens. So this is apparently many have said on record that this is the first treaty written and signed with clan signatures. So along the top, the majority there are Odaawaa people. Back in those days, in the late 17th century and the early 18th century, the Odaawaa were known by 4 different branches. Neswakoton, the Fork, people of the Fork, Negaujionnene, the people of the Big Sand, and then Gishkako, the cut tail, and then I think one says Kamiga. It'll come to me later. Anyway, you see up top there, the reason they say that Gishkakon, people would always say Gishkakon means that bear clan, because it's a Gishkanwet. The bear has a cut tail. And you see all those ones on top that are cut tail, but actually there's the word Sinago. The fourth branch was Sinago, and in Ojibwe we now say Sungo. So when you go down, when you come up here, you see all these red squirrels. Jidmo, we call them. But you go down to Toronto, you see those big squirrels. They're called gray squirrels or black squirrels, and their Anishinaabe name is Sungo. That's what these ones are named after. So Sungo, Swakoton, Nagao Jeonene, and now I lost the other one. Anyway, consult the tape after. So that bear clan, that was supposed to be what they said was the Gishkakon, was the cut tail. But actually, you see that fish off to the side? That one is actually a Gishkakon chief. And he has a split tail, and I'll show you later that that big catfish has a split tail, whereas the small catfish has a flat tail. And you see that one, that beaver that's up like this, and he's showing his hands. Earlier I showed you that Odaawaa Canyon painting. This is the same fella, this is the son of that fella. His name is Mindgun, and his Dodem is a Mick. That's who that is. And then you see beside him is a thunderbird holding, whenever there's like an arc, we say that's a thunderbird as opposed to an eagle. And especially if they have like feathers hanging down, then that's what we take to be a thunderbird clan. But it could be an eagle as well. So that one is the mark of the Mississauga, on the current reserve Mississauga on the North Shore, Lake Huron. They're eagle clan predominantly. And then there beside that is a forked stick of a Odaawaa chief named Eloesi. And then on the other side of that is a Crane clan chief named Wabunge. Wabunge, this name got handed down a number of different times. And in Western dialect, it means the spectator, the one who's watching. So here, this is the St. Joseph's Island Conveyance, and it was signed in 1798. And you see at the top there, there's a Ojibwe chief, and some say Odaawaa chief, Gwekwet Kamagishkam. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but Gwekwe would be going back and forth, or changing, and then Kamagishkam could be about stamping your feet or stepping or something. And then this other one, people have identified it as a crane, but I think it's a loon. The one below it, Buanis. And then Buan in our language, Buan is a Sioux. Buanis, the little Sioux. And I can't read that name, but the people call that one a wolverine. It could be a wolverine. But what I'll show you later is that the Anishinaabe, whenever they made a bear, they would make them arced like that. So I think that's a bear rather than a wolverine. And then below that is an unidentified fish. So the other thing that I forgot to mention at the outset is that a lot of people now say I'm fish clan or I'm bird clan. But back in the day, you were actually a particular species. You weren't just generic Gigon clan. And you weren't just generic Beneshi clan. You were actually a specific species. But what now has happened is we've lost that. So if you're a descendant of this person, then you'll be able to know, well, at least I know I'm fish. But you don't know what kind yet. So you see at the very bottom, that's what I'm talking about, where his wings are spread out, and then there's like all those feathers hanging down, and especially that kind of hourglass tail. Then that's what we take to be a crane, a Nimki, Thunderbird clan. Shawana Benesse is that one's name. Bird of the South. And then on the other side of that, you'll see two clans there. Well, I didn't know what this one was before, but one guy said thought it was horse clan, because you look at how the feet are made there. He said that's horseshoes. and that's what it looks like, upside down horseshoes. But I'll show you later that that's actually a caribou. And that fella there who signed that, his name is Odaawaa. And this is anybody named Debaske here, that's your great-great-grandfather, Odaawaa, who signed that St. Joseph's Island Conveyance in 1798. So what I tried to do was pull together as many documentary sources as I could to find out what actually the clans were. So this is a petition that was written in 1823, and the Arbor Cross Odaawaa asked for a teacher. And they say they've adopted Christianity and they need a teacher to help them. And then here what we ended up finding is that they wrote here, you look at this bird here, and it looks like it could be an eagle. And of course you'd want it to be an eagle if that was your surname. Makadebinese, that means a black raptor. Binese means, Bineshi is a little bird, Binese is a raptor. Makadebinese means black thunderbird or black eagle or black hawk. Anyway, right beside his name is written in French, and it says Esperve. So it isn't an eagle. And then over here, this one looks the same. And then written beside it, I can't make that one out. I'll have to find the other one there. Oh, here. So this, if you look at this one, he looks kind of the same as this one. So you would think they're the same clan. But actually up there it says un aigle, meaning an eagle. So they wrote this in English. They wrote their names in Ojibwe, and then whoever was writing their clans wrote them in French. And then here you see as well, this one, un enrail, that means a moose. And then you see here, un enrail is also, but then down here, un surf. So in French, a surf is the caribou, enrail is the moose. So when you look at these two, this one looks like it'd be the same as this one down here, but these are actually two different clans. So when you're putting all these things together, I'm trying to put them all together to sort out which clan is which. And then incidentally, it took me a while. I forgot to tell you is that I was learning to speak Ojibwe, and then I just came home from Toronto when I was living in Toronto, and I said that I heard people talking about clans, so I wanted to know what my clan was. So ngi kwajma mbapa, wanesh G-doodeminaanig. And he says, Gin kwatak, oh, bine gi kadok. He says, they used to say, bine. And so I was really happy I found out what my clan was. So ngi windamawa bejek getche pizza. So I told this one elder, and he says, no, that's not a clan. That's a surname. So as all my bubble was kind of burst. Then this other person I went and told again, and this other Anishinaabe says to me, no, that's a sub-clan. So I was kind of offended. And then, Gi o jama bejik Anishinaabe jis kionene. And then he showed me, I asked him, I said, my dad says our clan is Bine. My one teacher says that's a surname, and another lady says it's not good enough. So I said, what's the answer? And he says, well, why don't we'll ask, we'll see. So I was like, what? Okay. So he's sitting in this big chair, and he's got a big pickle jar, you know those big pickle jars? He's got all kinds of different plants in there. And he says, I had my tobacco, and he says, okay, give me that tobacco in my left hand, from your left hand, and take this from your right hand and put it in my right hand. So I put my tobacco in his left hand, and then he grabbed that, I grabbed that, and I put it in his hand, and then he went like this, and then there was a bine there, even with that little tuft, eh? So he says, can't you see that? But I was dumbstruck, like I'd never seen anything like that before. I was just like, and then he goes, well, if I keep keep doing that, they're going to get mad. I said, no, I saw it the first time. I said, I just didn't expect that. So now that's how I know that's my clan and my sister's clan and my kids' clan, is that Bine, and I know it for sure, because that man was able to show it. And there's no way he could have, I don't know how he would have done that. But anyway, so that's one way. But the other thing you got to be careful of is there are some people who tell you what you want to know. They'll tell you, yeah, you are Eagle Clan, and you're the greatest thing around. So you can't really, and I guess I'm kind of a bit of a doubter all the time. I need to see proof, eh? So that was our proof. But also up here is our proof, because they put un padre, a partridge. It says it in French there. Because I don't see any documents written in and signed in on Manitoulin with the Partridge Clan. So here, the one thing when you're doing this archival research, you see all these names. These are from Larbour Cross Village, and Middle Village. And a lot of people that moved to back to Wiki, were living there at the time. So you see a lot of similar names. Apakazagan, that means bearberry, but some say it means the Anishinaabe tobacco. And you see it's just a bird. And then Pidasage, some kind of bird again. And then here, this one, Naumshkode, in the middle of the prairie, that's that bullhead. And you see here that square tail, flat tail. But here you see Kinoshmeg, there's that brown bullhead, which we call Wasi in our language. And then this is Kinoshmeg, and then his father, Bebamadabi. Same clan, following their father's clan. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is this one, Nabaneg Ijik. And here, that's that giant catfish, channel catfish, I should say. And you see he's got a split tail and his whiskers on either side. So I'm pulling all these things together to try and find out whose clans are who. But again, bear in mind, just because you see your surname up here doesn't mean this is your clan. You got to follow that back. You got to do your genealogical research too, and say that if you're sure that your father's father's father go right back to this, then you can say that's my clan. But if you're not sure, a lot of people now, what has happened is people have taken their mother's surname. And then that's what happened in the past as well. They took their mother's surname, and then that created, for this purpose, you don't have as clear a line. So this fellow named Andrew J. Blackbird, he wrote a book called The History of the Odaawaa People and Indians of Upper State Michigan. And his clan he called it Pipi Gwen. And then on in Kadok Pipi Giuzens. And then that's sparrowhawk, they called it in English, sparrowhawk. So I had a bit of a time trying to find out what the sparrowhawk is, because you look in a common bird book, it doesn't say sparrowhawk. But now what I found out is, and there's also a pigeon hawk, and of course the famous chicken hawk. The chicken hawk is Bonse, the sparrowhawk is the Pipi Gwen, Pipi Giuzens. So that chicken hawk, Bonse, sharp-shinned hawk. But this one is, you'll see these ones, they're around here on the island, this Pipi Gwen, Pipi Giuzens. He's got a bit of a rusty brown color, but blue wings, and they call him American kestrel. The other one is called a merlin, and that one's the pigeon hawk, the merlin. So there's a fella, you may know him, Mala. He goes by the name Mala, Shawana. So I was telling him about this, he come up to me and talked to me about this clans after, and his name is Merlin. But I didn't know him as Merlin. I always knew him as Mala, and people called him Molly. And anyway, why he was named Merlin is because to name after that clan, to keep that clan going. And there's I don't think I have it on this one, but his ancestor's name was Misko Memengwe. Sounds like to me a red butterfly. And he had that clan, the Merlin, that bird which is like a hawk. So here we get to the Manitoulin Treaty 1836, and you see this Jean-Baptiste Signac, he could write his own name, so he did, and his son Itawishkosh also could write his own name, so he did. And I used to think that Mokmanish wrote his own name, but actually you compare this writing with the writing up there and the spelling, then I know that that's actually the Indian agent Thomas Gummersall Anderson's handwriting. And for whatever reason, he put an X there, and I'm still trying to figure out why he put an X on this treaty. And then here, Gimewan, the Kimewans, it looks like a buffalo, but somebody, and it's Anderson, wrote bear. So that's a bear clan for the Kimewan clan. And then here up top, that just looks like a big crayfish or a lobster, but actually they wrote beside it Moosehead, and it's a Chimokman people, and there's people that still have that name. And this is an older thing that used to happen too. They would have a clan that was called the bear paw, the bear's liver, the bear's heart, the bear's head, and likewise the moose head. And then here Bemasage, Bemasge's son was named Wakagijik, and his other son was Metzagi. So here, this is a clan, Fork Stick clan. Neswakoton, remember I was talking about the Odaawaa people were either Neswakoton, Nagao Jiwanene, Kishkakon, or Sanago. So here, this is that clan, Neswakoton. And then here, Nanam Dabe, sitting for a prolonged period of time, and it just looks like a blotch, but they wrote beside it eagle. And I have other documents that support that that's an eagle. The pen just got away on him. Moose Neko, and you see again the Swakoton, that forked stick. And then this guy's son was named Zao Nimki. And then Giwak Kons, this is a chief at Teslan, Crane clan, Shawanaswe, and here it's a pike. He wrote pike beside it. But when I've done this before, Chief Shining Turtle told me that he asked at a shaking tent, and they said that the clan was actually sturgeon. So anyway, they wrote there pike, so it's either a pike or a sturgeon. And then Espanol, here for a long time we were trying to figure out what this is, because it looks like C-O-R-K. So some would say it meant lark, like a meadow lark. And then, but what I think it actually says is, Sarah, cover your ears. It says cock, and it means the rooster, and I'll explain that later. And then snake is, it looks like a wolf, you'd say, but it actually says squirrel. And then here, Bem Goneshkang, this guy had a son named Bebamash, and here it says reindeer. So you see the reindeer without the antlers, they'll put on there once in a while. So that's the other thing we're trying to figure out, is why they sign sometimes antlerless. And in Wegimalke, a beaver. So here, this is just to show the spatial differentiation of where these clans came from. The story that the Odaawaa tell is that they went on a war party and they went raiding out west. And when they went out west, they went as far as the Rocky Mountains. And then on their way back, they met a people that they called Wigwame, the people who live in earthen lodges. And then they took those people captive. They made those people into, they said Wakan in our language, and now we say Okan. That's why we call a domesticated animal Okan, meaning a slave, a beast of burden. Okan. So here they brought these people back, and then that was their clan, was that Pipi Gwen. And then all these people that ended up, they got adopted into Odaawaa society, and then that's the only place you'll see that clan, up by Odaawaa people, by Larbercrosh, and then the ones that moved here to Manitoulin, and that's that Pipi Gwen, Pipi Gwis, and that's what Jean-Baptiste Siganok's clan was, and then also his son Itawishkosh, and then any other descendants. The other thing that I want to point out here is there's an error that's been perpetuated, that there's two people by the name of Siganok living in the 1850s, and both were chiefs, both were Odaawaa, both were chiefs, and both were living at Wickomacong in the 1850s. Jean-Baptiste Siganok was 90 odd years at that time, and he actually was Pipi Gwen clan, or Pipi Giwazens clan, Sparrowhawk clan. The other fella was named Aimable Siganok, and he was Bear clan. But people have started to say that this Aimable Siganok was the son of Jean-Baptiste Siganok, but that's not true. They just happen to have the same name, and you'll see that if you do a lot of this research, you'll see that these names are actually common enough. And it comes back to this idea again that just because your name is a bird doesn't mean that you're going to be a bird clan, and it doesn't mean that you're the only one that's going to have that name. So Aimable Siganok, his name was just a Siganok, meaning a starling or little blackbird. His clan was Bear. So there's no relation between that little starling and a black bear. Likewise, was Jean-Baptiste Siganok, that starling, that little blackbird, but that Pipi Giwazens, they're both birds, so you could say there's a relation, but not necessarily. So these are where these people had come from. And here's how it was mapped out. I mapped it out. These are the different territories that were defined, I guess, by the Treaty Commissioner Thomas Gummersall Anderson and Vidal when they came across in 1849. And they used basically rivers, Magnetawan River, the French River, up to this river, then from G-doodeminaanig to the Spanish River, then Spanish River to Serpent River, all the way out this way. So here you'll see through time that this Caribou clan is situated in this area, and this Beaver clan is usually situated in this area. Likewise, a Fish clan on Manitoulin area, and this one is that rooster, and then here's the squirrel, eagle, crane, and here the caribou. And then all these ones from Larbour Cross. So this is my favorite document because, like I was saying earlier, I've relied so far on French, people writing the names of the clan animals in French and then in English, and this is the document where they actually wrote it in Ojibwe. And this is actually what we would now call a bylaw. The chiefs of Wiki put together a bylaw saying that anybody who came to Wiki bringing whiskey will be banned, and they will confiscate the liquor. And then this is all the chiefs, and you see how many different chiefs in Hedman they actually had. But at that time, the head chief of Wakumekong was Bebamadabi, also known as Mukmanish. So that's the other thing. These guys had two Anishinaabe names at times. Bebamadabi, the one who's dragging things along, about, and then he had the name Mukmanish, the damn knife. And then you see here Bemasge with Metik, and then here I'll show you that a Siganok. So here's a Siganok, and I showed you the other Siganok. This one's the Aimable Siganok, and it says Makwa. So that's how I know Aimable Siganok isn't the son of Jean-Baptiste Siganok, because they have two different clans, and if they were the father and son, they would have the same clan. So here, Giekando, that is Mazandamo, that black water snake, and you see it there. Keche Osayen, our great older brother, big older brother. Sayen is an older brother. Keche Osayen is a big older brother in Beaver clan. And then Tekma, this is a chief, Tekma, and he had a Moose clan. Incidentally, that Andrew Blackbird wrote in his book as well that the true chieftainship of the Odaawaa people belonged with the Moose clan, he said. Anybody of the Moose clan that are Odaawaa are diminishing in numbers, but they actually should be the main chiefs. But he said it's only through the deeds of my forefathers of the Pipi Gwen clan on the warpath and then speaking in council that they ended up becoming the premier chiefs of the Odaawaa. He says, but by bloodline and by right and by ancient ties, it actually should be Moose, which is actually interesting because this guy gets deposed in 1860 because he wants to sign the treaty. So the people of Wakumekong actually gather up his belongings, put him on a boat, and then shove him out in the Manitoulin Bay and tell him not to come back. That if he wants to sign the land away, then he should go live on the ceded part of the area. So here, and in here, Jaanis, and his name was Wasagijik, and you see there, Meshibji, and he's got that lion tail there. And then here, lo and behold, a Sinewe, Neme Bene, We got a sucker clan. Eshkaka Ginoje, Pike, Bem Nakanang, and this Bem Nakanang, one of his sons was named Ojik. So now we say Ojik, but they're Bear Clan. And then Ganoshmeg, Owasi. So this Ganoshmeg is the son of Bebamadabi, and you see they have the same clan. So the other thing you got to do when you're doing this research is find out, because the names change. Wakagijik to Bemasage, Metzagi, Ganoshmeg, Bebamadabi, Mokmanish. And then Mokmanish's brother was likely Oshkabewas. And then what I suspect, but I haven't proven, is that the people that are now called Oshkabewas, they were named after Oshkabewas, their kids. Like when we were kids, we would call people after their father, the little people like that. Eh? So there's people, they're Lyman here, Lyman Corbiere. Then my sister calls her friends, they're Tammy and April, Lymanuk or Lymanesuk, they're little Lymans. So that's the same thing that I think happened with this Oshkabewas, then Oshkabewas says, but I could be wrong on that part. And then Makadebenese had sons named Jawana and Pangoish, and then Jonas' son was Wasagijik, and Makons' son was Omin Kamago, which now we say Amanika, which there, and this happens to be the only time that I see Makons, little bear cub, and Makwa, that the name matches the clan. So again, you see here, Mokmanish, same clan, Wakagijik, Forkstick, Nesikagabo, and that's that Makons' son. So he had two names, Taugewenene, son was Jaco. And so the Jaco people have that Caribou clan as well. And then here you see again, they signed their, this is a copy. How you can tell the other thing when you're going through these archival documents, this is all in one hand. You see this guy, this is actually Francois Metzagi, Bemaske's son. He could write in Ojibwe, so he wrote this all down, and then he put all their clans down. So they didn't actually sign this document themselves. He signed it on their behalf, and then they would say, touch the pen. So here, this one was called Kade Anishinaabe, and he had that G-doodeminaanig, and this was painting by Paul Kane. And here Jean-Baptiste Signac, and he was sketched by the priest Nicolas Point. And here's this guy's name at that time was Esban, but he was also Bemasge. So again, note that he had two names. And then here Makons, and then here Mokmanish and Bebamadabi. This is a chief from the North Shore called, now they call themselves Sayers, but his name was Nabanegojing. And he was, his father-in-law was Shingwakons. And you see here that the principal chieftainship at the Sioux has usually been Crane clan. So when you look up here, it looks like this is a Crane, Shingwakons, and then here Nabanegojing, and there's his Crane clan. And then also Francois Giwakons, and that was his clan, the Crane as well. You can't tell here, but that's the eagle. I know it from other documents. And then here, Gabeo Se was also a Crane clan. And here's what I would call classic Ojibwe representation of a bear. So you just do 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 marks to draw your bear. And then I don't know what kind of fish that is. But why I wanted to put this painting up is these guys walked to Montreal, Shingwakons, and Nabanegojing, and they made their outfits. And when they went there, they went to the Governor General, because by this time, they already set up, you know, when you drive by Bruce Mines, and they have that sign that says Canada's first mine, copper mine, first copper mine in Canada, should actually say illegal mine. Because that's why these guys ended up walking to Montreal. They said, you got no treaty. We have no treaty here. These guys have no business setting up a mine, and no prospector should be on our territory. So what these guys did, they went and took a cannon from Sault Ste. Marie, and they went up to Micah Bay where they set up, and they fired that cannon, and they told the miners to get the hell out of there. And then these guys got arrested, and they got thrown in jail. Then after they got released, then they went to Montreal and they took this petition with them. But he made sure he put on his jacket, his tunic, a mark of his Crane clan. So that's how you know he was directly identifying, I'm the Crane clan, and my people have been the owners of Sault Ste. Marie, Baoting, for generations and generations. So this is the same, this is a Chigwakon's painting done at the same time when they're both in Montreal. The artist was a famous Canadiana artist named Cornelius Krieghoff. And here, but you see his totem, and here another petition, but he put the totem again, and it says plover, G-chi-shkwen. But he spelled it, he didn't really spell it the way we spell it now, G-chi-shkwen. And to me that means a killdeer, but he put plover. And so what had happened was, I know you're going to ask me this, so I thought I'd better put this slide in. His father, and he never tried to hide this at all, his father was a white man, this Chigwakon's. So for a while, and his mother was Crane clan. And so he was, when he became a chief after the War of 1812, he was promoting himself as the Crane clan chief. And then the Crane clan chief said, you're not Crane clan. Your father's a white man. You can't be a Crane clan. So the story goes, and the Pine people tell this story, that he fasted to find out then, if I'm not Crane clan, what's my clan? And then this is the one that appeared to him, this plover. So likewise, this guy is a Mississauga Ojibwe from New Credit or Credit River by Toronto, and his name was Peter Jones. And you see here he's got a really nice black and hide bag. He's got a Thunderbird on it. Anyway, here they wrote on this document, they took like a census, and they have all their people here, and this one was named Herkimeyer, and he had Bear Clan. And then here his wife, Otter Clan. And then here Peter Jacobs, Badasge, and this guy was Reindeer. Incidentally, there's Peter Jacobs. His son ended up moving here, and then his son was served as missionary here at Manitoulin, and his son was the one that witnessed 1862 treaty and served as interpreter as well. And then the people that he ended up marrying people up here, and now they have like Bernie Jacobs and these people that are up at Serpent River. This is their ancestor. And then here you see the Catherine Sunago, and that Sunago again is that squirrel, but her clan is Eagle. And then here, Nawajigijik is a Pike clan. This guy's father was also a white man, and his father's name was Augustus Jones, and he ended up, he didn't know what his clan was, but what had happened, his grandfather did a ceremony and writes about it, and his grandfather adopted him into the clan. So he specifically adopted him into the Eagle clan. So I put this up because I couldn't find a document where Peter Jones actually signs with an eagle. So there are two different ways that people handled it historically when their father was a Jaganash. And I'll tell you later on there's two more ways. So here, this is called the lion, the eagle, and the rooster. So this is the France Football Federation logo. And it's a stylized rooster. And when you look at stuff, merchandise that came to Michilimackinac back in the French era, they always had a rooster on there. And so this Espanol, it says here, people were saying lark, so I think it says cock, because then an anthropologist came to Spanish River in the 1930s, and she said, she took an enumeration of their clans, and she said, the people here say that anybody of the French persuasion carries the clan of the rooster. And she says, but I don't know why. So here you see Charlot Toulouse. It doesn't say what actual bird it is, but it's just a bird. But I suspect, again, that at that time he was signing with a rooster. So, of course, now we want our clans to be these ferocious predators, but if you go around saying that your clan is chicken or rooster, you get laughed at. So I got a book that this fella wrote, and his name was Knietz. And he actually was doing a study on acculturation or assimilation. And so he had this one group in Wisconsin called Lakeview Desert, and they call themselves in Ojibwe Gittaganing, Gette Gittaganing, Old Garden. And they still practice the Midewin there. They did their ceremonies, big drum ceremonies and everything. And who he used as his comparison was Sucker Creek and Chigging as being the acculturated or assimilated ones. So he came here and he wrote down, asked the oldest people what the clans were, and some of the people in Chigging and didn't know, but he talked to an old lady named Miss Mary Wabunge, and this Miss Mary Wabunge, her clan was actually, her father was Ebis, and she says, my clan is Pike. She says, my husband's Wabunge, but I was always told not to say this. She says, my husband's clan is the Eagle. And the reason I was told not to tell people that my clan is Eagle is because they're going to send me back to the United States. And that story actually is still carried on here. Louis Debosque told me that as well. He said that when he was younger, they used to say, don't say that you're from the States, they're going to send you back. And when all these treaties were being signed, that's when people were being sent back. They would say, no, you're an American Indian. You don't belong here, and you don't get treaty money, or you don't get this or that. So the government was really trying to create this division. And that was one way they were doing it, by saying you're American. But the OCF has a book on sale here by Anton Troyer, and he has he notes in there that the people where he's from, Leech Lake, Minnesota, that they say if anybody married an American, their clan is the Eagle. So although we now say it's a big thing for us to say Eagle Clan, but actually that morphed into saying your father is an American, a Chimokman. And if your father's father was a Wemtegosh, a Frenchman, then you had the Rooster as a clan. So I checked up this thing on the Rooster, and the reason they're all proud of that is the Gauls. They call them Gauls or Gaelic people at that time. And but it has all this ties back to Christianity. Because when Jesus tells, does he tell Peter or Paul? He says, you're going to deny knowing me 3 times, and on the 3rd time, the cock will crow, and then you'll know that my words are true. And so the other thing is that the rooster takes becomes a symbol of guarding against evil. And also when night ends and day begins, and that's this whole symbolic thing of night being evil or darkness, and then bringing light. So that's what this rooster represents, bringing light kind of thing. And then here, for Englishmen, if your father was a Jaganash, then you had Mishibji. So remember I was telling you that my father had said our clan was Bine, so I asked my mother what her clan was, and she didn't know. But when I had asked her, she was still living, our great aunt was still living at that time, named May Wabagijik in Jishiguaning. And this was my grandfather's half-sister. So she says that my grandfather's dodem was Jagenshi, or some say Jagenjigan, a crayfish. And then when she's telling us this, May then says, oh, that must be my dodem too then. She says to her grandmother who was raising her. Then her grandmother says, Kawin, Jaganash Kos, your father was a white man. She says, Mishibji Gododem, your clan is the Mishibji. So that's what that old lady told me back in, must have been 1998, around that time. So that's the first time I heard it. But then that's when I started doing all this research, and I saw this fellow, John Mitchell, and he lived at Shegwenda, and he moved to Birch Island, and his father was a surgeon at Drummond Island back at the turn of, after the War of 1812. And so his mother was an Anishinaabe Clan. So that's why he signs with this lion. And then in other documents, it actually does say John Mitchell, we Sakadewanene. And that's an older word for Métis people. And then here the same thing, Jonas says Meshibiji, and then that's what it said in the other documentation. This man had an Englishman for a father. So here, this is a medal, the American symbol, of course. When they would give these medals, it had the American eagle on it, and that's how the people would end up thinking themselves, that must be the American clan, that's the Englishman's clan, and that's the Frenchman's clan. That's how Anishinaabe adopted them into the clan now. But now the teaching that goes back to when you read in Eddie Benton's Mishomis book, they say that anybody who has a non-native father, they say that the Wabjesh stood up and adopted them into the clan. So I've showed you 4 or 5 different ways that people handled this in the past. Some would say that they're adopted by the Wabjesh. Others would say that if it were a Frenchman, an Englishman, or American, they would either take a rooster, an eagle, or the lion. And then the other was Shingwakons, he fasted and became the plover. And then the other got readopted back into the clan by his grandfather. So here, just to show you, these are different clans. These are on the Georgian Bay area, Sandy Island, and these are people from Perry Island now in Shawanaga. But this, at one point, there was a dispute as to the chieftainship in the Muskoka area. And it was Chief Migas who wrote a letter, and he says, the Caribou clan are usurpers. The original clan here was the Birch Bark. And he says, tell Chief Migas to hand over the medal, and it should belong to the rightful chiefs in this area, and him being of the Birch Bark clan. So these clans were actually tied to specific territories as well. So here, I don't want to offend anybody if this is your last name, Mendawabit, but the reason I keep putting this up, one lady came up to me after I put this up there, He-Devil, is that's how he painted this guy named Paul Kane, he painted this, and he says, He-Devil, it was named that. And the reason I keep using it is because that's the title of the painting. And if you try and find that, if you're doing research after and you try and find it using another name, you're not going to find it. So that's why I'm using the name that he used, and I don't want to offend you. But one lady came up to me after one time and said that I was really hurt by that. So I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But there's two, that name, the way it's spelled and the way it's pronounced, it depends how it's said, what it means. So in Wiki they say Mendawabit. And when you say it that way, that means seeing as a spirit, as a nido. Wabe is seeing, nido is spirit, nido wabit, seeing as a spirit. Manitowabi, now they say Manitowabi, nidowabe. But then if it ends in a sound instead of abe, it means male. So you hear, like many of you know Glenn Hare, and whenever he meets another Anishinaabe, he always says, Aniyabe. That means a buck, the male of the species. And of course you say Anishinaabe, that it means the male of the species as well. So here, Nidowabe, the male Nido, the spirit of the male. So here it is, but there's two people that have that name. One, the ones that are in Wikwemkong, and then the ones that are living sometimes at Cape Croker, and then sometimes at Wasauksing. But you see his clan here, Nidowabe, it's a 4-legged. And then again here, John Manitowab, another 4-legged. Looks like bear here, but here, I'm not sure because he has a tail. So it could be two different guys as well. So this is, you can tell, remember what I was saying, here all the names are written in one hand and they're nicely lined up. But here you look at the clans and they're all over the place. So you can tell these guys actually drew their own clans. They're not nice and lined up the way those other documents were. So you know this is an original document that was signed, not a copy. That's how you tell. So again, Meshkunage, a beaver. And then Ginoje, here's Debaske. And when people used to see this, I heard different Debaske people say that they were a Thunderbird clan because this is a lightning bolt. And you see that it does look like a lightning bolt, but it depends what that name means. And Ngi Kwajma Bejik Kenzi Johnny Debaske ba Anishinaabe Debaske. And he says Debaske, when there's repeated flashes of lightning, that there's no shadow. So that's what he said the name means. And then there's this book by Anna Jameson Bromwell, and she translates the name as thunders off in the distance. But the Asage refers to light, not sound. So you all know, you say Depsini when you're full, you say Depskine when you have enough, Deb said there is enough. So that Deb, and if you see somebody off in the distance, Debab Ma, Debab and Dung, and that's also Tabab and Dung, the name Tabab and Dung. But it means you see them off in the distance, they're perceivable off in the distance. So Debaske, the light, some say as far as the light goes. And then others say it means the light of the sun. So that's why some people thought that this was the sun, and then that was a ray. But I'll show you in a couple of slides that that's actually the short form of a caribou's track on there. And then here, Takama assigns this as a deposed chief with a full rack of Moose clan. And then here, where's Bem Goneshkang? Bem Goneshkang also signs with a full rack. And remember the 1836 treaty, he signed without the antlers. So some of these people could sign their name, and others were looking at why they signed it upside down. This Webenesime, it looks like a bear, and it looks like he's on his back. I don't know if it means that he gave up. And then here, where is this guy? Ebis, Ginoje, Noate Gijik, that's a beaver from a different document, but it's a big smudge there. And then here, Bebam Se and Gijigo Benes, these two were brothers. So that's a close-up, and this is a document written again, protesting the treaty in 1863. And you see these are the Chiging names, but here these are the ones that signed: Ebis, Crane, Bem Goneshkang, Adik, or Caribou, Debaske, Caribou, Edewishkosh, Pipi Givazens, Noate Gijik, who was living at Chiging at the time, and there's a beaver there. So Ebis has that pike, Noate Gijik, a beaver, Shabane, there was people here named Shabane, I don't know where they are now, but it looks like a crane or a heron. And then a Nuatan, a caribou, Ojibwe Gijik, another caribou, Misewe Antquat, Mize Antquat, and it's some kind of either a bittern, it looks like a bird standing in water, he's got a long beak. And then Shabalganish, this guy was related to Nuatan. And then here, these are Shibal Gijik, I don't know what kind of bird that is, but you see it's different, drawn differently than the others. And here's that beautiful name, now a Kamikagabo, and he's got a caribou clan. No. Yeah, caribou clan. I'll go with Se, that name's still carried in Wiki. Jean-Baptiste Babonang, and then there's a crane. And then here, Azawik Kagabo, Zozens, Bijik, so some kind of raptor. Those Kwayab, that's people are called Spanish now, and there's, it looks like a pike. So here you see that one, that previous one was nicely lined up. So that's all drawn in the same hand. So this one is also protesting the Treaty of 1862, but you see these are all over the place. These are their original marks. But you see this is actually John, this is John, Samson, what they call Samson now. Samson Edewishkosh, but his son John Edewishkosh was the one who wrote this all out in Ojibwe, and then they each put their name, their clan down. So you see Otwen Okeda puts a bear, and then his brother Mishan Okeda puts a bear. I don't know why one uses kind of black and the other white. And then here, this fella, Winit away, And then right here, I would think it was a heron, but they wrote right in the body, Jijok. So we know it's a sandhill crane instead of a heron. And then here, the same thing. These people, Bidasge, Optagijik, it says Megazeh. And you see, they got the talons and the ruffle and the pronounced beak. But here's John Edwishkosh. So I used to think it was a seagull. Looks like he's standing on a rock. But I know from here, Edwishkosh, and then also up here, another document, and then also the writings of his cousin Blackbird, that is Pipi Gwen. So this one is really interesting because you have all these people and you see how now, like I was telling you at the beginning, that people ended up saying, well, my mother's clan was this, so I got this clan because I'm a lady. And I'm a man, so I follow my father's clan. I've actually heard that they'll say, my mother, I'm a woman, so I follow my mother's clan, and my brother follows the father's clan. So that's not what the law is. You're supposed to follow your father's clan, whether you're a boy or girl. And this document actually bears that out. So maybe we'll take a break because I need a drink. And then if half of you disappear, that's all right. But I got maybe 10 more slides. So we'll take a 10-minute break.